Hello, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. Welcome to the Dr. Finance Live podcast. All right, we got an awesome, amazing guest today. We got Alec Stern here. He's the co-founder of Constant Contact and amazing entrepreneur and also author. So we have a lot to learn about Alec today. He's a startup expert as well. So let's give a warm welcome to Alec. Hello, Alec. Welcome, sir.
Hey there. Thank you so much, Anthony. Look forward to today's talk.
How are you today? Everything great?
Everything's great. Everything's great. Another beautiful day as an entrepreneur.
All right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about entrepreneurship. Every day has to be a great day because you're working 7 days a week.
That's right. That's right. Every day is like another Monday.
Well, we're going to get started. First, I'd like to just get to know you more. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe in 2 to 3 minutes or so?
Yeah, so happy to. So I say I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur who likes cereal. Honey bunches of oats with almonds is.
I actually ate that this morning. That's crazy.
This is this week's choice, but I use almond milk and put in some blueberries. So I make it dress it up a bit. But seriously, 8-time co-founder, founding team member with 8 startups, 5 exits, 2 IPOs, 3 acquisitions, most notably co-founder of Constant Contact. We started with 3 of us in an attic, 18-year overnight success. We went public on year 10, and year 18, we sold for 1.1 billion. So
that's awesome, Alec. So let's take this maybe chronologically. So you're originally from where?
Okay, yeah. So my mom's from Boston. My dad was from New York, and they were living in Boston, but we had moved to Connecticut. So when my mom was having my sister and I separately, she came back up to Boston to do so because her network was here. So I was born in Boston, lived here maybe 5 days. So I got a Boston, probably the shortest resident in Boston with a birth certificate. And then went down to Connecticut, then New Jersey when I was a teenager. I went to college at Syracuse, and then I came to Boston after graduating college.
Wow. Ben Franklin did the same thing. He left Boston, came to Philadelphia, where I'm from.
Ah, all right. I knew him well. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't want to date myself in terms of age. But Ben and I were tight. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Alec, after college, where did you graduate college at?
Syracuse.
Syracuse. Okay. So after college, can you tell us about how the story of how you actually got connected with Constant Contact, how that whole thing came about, where you helped create a $1 billion+ business?
Yeah. So and that's just a real small part of the story, but it's a big part because everyone knows Constant Contact. But I got out of college and actually did a case study of a company called Prime Computer that was up here, headquartered here in Boston. And I thought it was a pretty cool, progressive company. I wanted to work there. Very long story, but I'll tell you the real quick 2-minute. So I wanted to get a job there because I thought, wow, that this company is so cool. And the resistance hit when they told me how they don't hire anyone right out of college. You have to have 5 to 10 years experience, et cetera. Long story short, I called the most senior people in the C-suite, senior vice president of worldwide sales and marketing, and convinced, the admin to get me 30 minutes on his calendar. And I went up to Boston and I met him and said, you need to hire college graduates, and convinced them to start a program. And I was the first one, and as the guinea pig, to go through the trainings, see what resonated, what we had to adjust. And then they went on and, had, hired, 50 to 100 a year after that. And, recent college grads. So had a great experience there at a big company, but one of the most senior people went to a startup, and he said, listen, I'm going over to the startup with some other folks that are from here. And I can't promise you in 6 months if we're going to be around or we can pay you, but I want you to come with us. And so I'm like, interesting. I had about $4 million of business that I had booked. I was in business development, and I was trying to close, right? And so I thought, wow, I've got this $4 million. I put a lot of money in my pocket, or I go to the startup and I may not have a job in 6 months, but I really liked him in the team that was starting it. So I closed some business in 3 months. I called them back and said, I want to come. So I shifted over 5 years to the day of joining. We went public.
Wow.
And shortly thereafter we sold. And it was a company that no one would know by name, but we had amazing success. And then, you know, I had gotten some stock in the mix. And so after we went public, I'm like, this piece of paper is worth what? And I was like, how do I do this again? So, you know, the story goes, you know, from there where, you know, I started another company, which we had sold in 9 months they wanted our idea and the tech team. So it was an acqui-hire, but it was an acquisition as well. So, and then went on and eventually had another one after that. And then Constant Contact came in the mix. I was doing a lot of things with small business, as was, you know, the other two co-founders. And so we really were passionate about small business, and we were doing stuff back end. So I was working on payment systems and e-commerce systems and some other things in the earlier days as those were evolving, but there's nothing on the front end with marketing. So Constant Contact came into the mix because we wanted to level the playing field for small businesses against the big competitors out there like Amazon and others that had enterprise tools, they had resources, agencies, tech teams that could help them. And the small business on Main Street had nothing. So that was the original premise, and email marketing was the first idea. And, you know, that ended up being the anchor product of the company as we you know, got out and tested that early and saw that we were onto something and got, you know, some early customers to take it and have some success with it and off to the races.
So how many companies did you start up, and how many of them actually turned into IPOs?
Yeah, so there were 8. So up to about 3 years ago, because now I've got a bunch of new ones, but up to 3 years ago, there were 8 companies with 5 exits, 2 IPOs, and 3 acquisitions. So the others are still going, but those had an exit with an IPO or an acquisition, or both. Yeah.
So can you tell us all right, so stepping back, this is really crucial. So your first exit, you got a lot of money in your hand. That's, in my opinion, I think that's one of the hardest things. And once you got a sizable amount of money, you can, if you got the knowledge, you can really grow that quickly. How did it feel when you first got that large sum of money and said, wow, all right, what do I do next? Like, and now you realize that you have a lot of control of your future.
Yeah. So you know, I mean, one lesson I learned early in life, you know, my dad was always of the school, like he was successful on R&D and he was, you know, he was involved in over 100 patents in intimate apparel and just, you know, successful in his own right. But you know, he always would he'd never buy a new car. He would always buy a used car because when you take it off the lot, it depreciates. And he's, you know, all these rules about life, you know, with spending money and whatnot. So some of that I carried with me. You know, I had friends that had some success with money and were buying the boats and the cars and everything else. And I was buying real estate, you know, and I was, you know, I was just trying to be smart about it. So it didn't change anything in my life. It just made a few things easier because I was, you know, living hand to mouth when I started and had to borrow money to buy my first few suits to start my first job. But you know, I was being smart about that, and then also, you know, it just led me to want to jump in and start do it again, you know, and go earlier and earlier, you know, in the formation of creating businesses to help, you know, the target market. So.
And Alec, you said a great thing that resonates with someone like myself and probably a lot of my audience. You started hand to mouth. You know, we both came from humble beginnings, and your average entrepreneur out there right now is struggling, is in that exact moment of where you were, and to take it from that stage to where you're at now is an incredible climb. So I want to applaud you for that. Is there any? Can you talk about what? Just briefly, like go back to that hand to mouth phase, looking up the hill. It's always easy looking backwards and say, look, you know, it's easy. But at that moment, it feels like the end of the world where you're panicking. You don't know what's next. Can you just describe some of those thoughts that went through your head when you were in that particular moment of your life where you weren't so sure?
Yeah, and so I'm a take control and type of person. So I got as I mentioned, I had gotten the opportunity to join this company. I was placed after I went through the trainings and set that all up, for recent college grads to follow. And I used to go speak it to all of them as the first. But then I was placed into a sales office and didn't get a lot of support, because I'll tell you, the day one, my manager at the time called me into his office and said, "I wanted to just tell you, welcome. You're a liability to me. You took away a hiring requisition for someone with experience for me to now babysit you. I'm not doing it. So don't bother me and don't bother the other reps. I'll give you a territory and you're on your own." And I got a bunch of accounts that were dead, or used to work with us, or would never want to speak to the company again, and whatever. And I turned many of those around to work with us again. And so, I had to make it happen. And so, one, because I obviously needed to pay rent and pay for a car and all the stuff that I needed to actually succeed here. But two, I was motivated by someone telling me that I'm going to fail, or setting me up to fail, and I wasn't having it. So I ended up that first year, I ended up being the rookie of the year for the whole company, against people with 5 to 10 years experience, and one of the top salespeople that year. And of course, the people that made the decision to start that program are, just feeling beaming, because we took a risk with these college grads, and this first one actually knocked it out of the park. And I will tell you, I was standing at an award ceremony in Hawaii to go up on, was going to go up on stage to receive the big award for Rookie of the Year as the youngest one in the company. And all the executives are in a circle beaming about our protege, and this kid's knocking on our door, trying to get us to hire recent college grads, and look at them now and whatever. And then because everyone that won the award, the managers got to go. So that manager who told me not to bother him and I was a liability was there, and he walked up to the group and he was kind of almost saying, "Look at my, here's my star here over here, blah, 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 blah." And I said, time out. Indulge me for a moment. I think let's recall that first conversation where you brought me into your office and you shut the door and you told me I was a liability and to leave you and all the other reps alone, and that I took a rec away from you. I said, where was that? Where's that in the conversation? I did this on my own. And so he turned all red. The executives were all laughing, and he walked away. And I was like, I'm not giving him that moment.
That's awesome. You're of course, a lot of people highlight the whole constant contact thing. We're going to talk about that. But for me, I dig that more. I like this part the best about you, the fact that you came up from nothing and you proved them all wrong. To me, I love that part. So
yeah, and just a kind of a minor clarification. So we were provided for as a family, and my dad had a funny relationship with money, and was always like, we can't afford this and can't afford that, and we're not going on a trip. And my mom would always win those conversations, and we'd be on a trip. He's like, look what I've done for you, And so if there was something special that I wanted, like a moped or a bike or whatever, I would work. And I, built up a whole business in the neighborhood, shoveling snow, cutting lawns, detailing cars, and being a handyman to help. I was a lot of Wall Street people. So the husbands are gone all day and come home, spent after trading all day. And so I would get called on to can you help us do X, Y, or Z, or move this? And I'd get other kids in the neighborhood to help me with projects, and built up a nice little business, made some money. And then, and was able to, sort of provide for myself as a kid, of some of the stuff that I wanted, that if I asked for it, I probably wouldn't get it, or I'd have to wait for a special occasion like my birthday or something. So, I just really learned how to, I guess, become, entrepreneurial and find ways to make some money. And it just carried forward when I got into business to, I didn't let things, you can make a lot of excuses well, I'm really young and I'm going to go talk to these people that are 2 or 3 times my age about what we're selling. And, they're going to not take me seriously, and, just say it with confidence and go in with confidence. And, and so I was very successful in convincing people who had done business with with the company prior and had stopped, and convincing them to work with us again. And I built great relationships with people that were much older than me, just being, very professional and very consultative. And so I just learned how to make it happen.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alec. Before we get into the other questions, I just wanted to, as part of your story, can you just briefly summarize the whole constant contact thing just for the record, so they know the story of how that became, because that's a very interesting story too.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, that was probably the fifth startup that I was involved with on the founding team or co-founder. We, as I said, the three of us that were in the attic initially had all worked and are passionate about small businesses on Main Street, and really saw that there was nothing for them, leveling that playing field on the marketing side with the big competitors that are out there. And so we set out, and, even before this is one thing about starting something, you've got to get out early and often and talk to your target market. So identify exactly who your target market is, look at a bullseye on a dartboard, who's in that bullseye, and go talk to them. Mm-hmm. And then ask them, what are the things they have that they, what's their 3-year vision? And where do they see the business in 3 years? What do they have that they like, that they want more of? What don't they have that they wish they had? Do they want to, help their customers, in ways of saving time or increasing revenue, or providing them products and services? Like, what are they trying to achieve? And really understand that. So you're going to sit there and listen to them, with intention. And if you take the letters of the word listen and move them around, it spells silent. So you're going to sit silent and present and listen, and not be in your head saying, well, oh, they said this, I should maybe say that. Once I finish saying that, I could talk about this. I got to go shopping later. Like, you're in your head thinking about all these things. You got to stop that and really listen, because they're going to give you the roadmap to what would make something successful for them. And so then they're going to say, well, what are you working on? And you'll give them little snippets of what you're doing. And then they're going to, it's going to resonate, and you'll see them get wide-eyed because, they're interested. And then, you'll ask them, is this something you see yourself using? And can this help you? And they say, yes, this is great. And then the real power question is, do you see yourself paying for it? And they're like, yeah, this is priceless. I would definitely pay for it. So then you're onto something. And then go to strangers, because they'll give you brutal, honest feedback. You can go to family and friends. They're going to tell you they love you, and you're going to be so successful, and you're going to get the chills. And you really got to go to strangers to get that brutal, honest feedback, and then get them to take the product or offering. In which, in the case of Constant Contact, I went out and found 4 customers that I didn't know that could take the offering and start to use it and give us that feedback and complain when it found a bug or it wasn't working, and all the things, because we were early in building it while they were using it. So I just really believe in going as early and often as possible to your target market, because they're going to give you the feedback. And oftentimes someone will say, I used to be a small business, so I know what they need. Well, that doesn't count, because what they need today and what they're going to need tomorrow is different than maybe what you experienced being one. So you've got to be out there in front of them as early as possible. And that's what we did, got 4 customers. And that's what fueled us when we heard all these no's, that no one's going to, use email as a marketing tool. They already have an inbox. No one's selling to small business except for ADP and Intuit. And you just, how are you going to succeed at this? Like, we heard no's left and right from all different people.
Sorry to interrupt you, Alec. What does Constant Contact do?
So it's a suite of marketing tools for small business today. It started with email marketing.
Okay.
Right. So basically the premise was, first leveling the playing field against those big competitors, as I mentioned earlier. And then the second thing is give them a self-service, easy to use tool that all they had to worry about was what they want to say, when they wanted to say it, and to whom. And we would, create, these templates for them and not have to worry about HTML coding or anything like that. Just write your messaging, drop it in, pick your colors, drop in images if you like, hit send, and then give them all the tracking and reporting. So as email marketing is, the first email marketing tool for small businesses, and then it was one of the first 2 SaaS offerings ever. So there were a lot of trailblazing moments for the company. But it was built on the back of an amazing, started with founders, then the founding team, and then it was 1,500 employees, 750,000 paying customers at the time we sold, over 8,000 partners that are promoting and marketing it. Amazing board, amazing investors. The list went on for the army that made it the success that it was. So, or is, I should say.
Thank you. And what's its status today? It's still running.
Yeah. So I think it was about 5 years ago we sold, and the company that bought it was public, so it went under them as they were kind of a house of brands, if you will. Mm-hmm. The largest one that they had acquired, that they had acquired, but it was under another company, Endurance International, who acquired them, and then I stayed on for about 1.5 years after, as a just consulting and helping out, or getting the calls occasionally for the help, or going to meet the CEO for lunch and whatever. But then and now they've spun out as its own entity within this last year, and still operating as as Constant Contact, and it's having great success. And the great thing about Endurance, who acquired them, was it was a 1 and 1 equals 3 scenario, because they have Endurance International has an amazing suite of products, and their products start all the way down at the beginning of discovery, getting your domain, all the way up through to nurturing and cultivating the relationships of your customers, which was Constant Contact. So that piece was missing. We partnered. It was a strategic partner. We had success, poured gas on it, had more success, and they said, we want to buy you. So it was through a strategic relationship that the acquisition occurred, and it was a perfect fit. And today it's still going strong, and Endurance and Constant Contact are having great success. And it grew into a whole suite of products beyond email marketing.
Thank you, Alec. Appreciate it. All right, Alec. So I want to pivot for a moment. Let's start talking about your books. How many books did you write, and what are their names?
Yeah, so I haven't written books. I've been a collaborator and a co-author in other books. There's a handful of other books that I've written a chapter in, or anchoring the lead chapter, like the 13 Steps to Riches that you're also involved with with Eric Swanson. So I'm writing one. I'm the lead author of one of the Think and Grow Rich 13 chapters, if you will. And so I've got 2 books in the works, but I don't have my own book out quite yet. So.
All right. So folks, keep an eye out for Alec. His book is coming out within the next year.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Got to say that and set the intention and make it happen.
So, but the 13 Steps to Riches book, I do want to highlight that, folks. Definitely check that out. Alec is he's a major celebrity author in those books. What book was it again, Alec? I forget. Say it again. What number?
8. I think I'm 8. Persistence.
8. Okay, so there's 13 books, folks, in the series, and Alec is the 8th book for that. We're doing 13 Steps of Riches from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book, right out of his actual book. We're breaking down one book per chapter. So Alec would have be the 9th chapter, actually. The 8th step to riches. So definitely check it out. Thank you, Alec. Appreciate that. And looking forward to co-authoring with you. Awesome. We just got the second book published. I think it was yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
Sharon Lecter's in there. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What attracts you to speaking in front of large audiences?
Yeah. So from the earlier days in my career, I was always, speaking at conferences. I became a top 100 influencer in the digital marketing space, and so I was doing a lot of thought leadership talking and going to major conferences and keynoting, and it was always so funny because we Constant Contact would always lead with value and best practices and teach people how to be successful at online marketing. And so, a lot of these conferences, like no vendors allowed, no vendors speak, you can be a sponsor and get 3 minutes and pay for that. And yet I would keynote every one of these events. And so I'd always laugh but we're a vendor, but they didn't see us as such because we're adding so much value and helping. So I spent a lot of time in that. And in fact, there was a conference room at Constant Contact dedicated to me. And and the whole room had all kinds of stuff, about some of the early stories and some of the fun quips of things that happened. But one wall was the lanyards of all of these conferences that I was keynoting, and somebody, I think, somebody just made a rainbow, because of the lanyard colors, made a rainbow of all of these lanyards, and it was hundreds of them. So, it was just, it was really kind of a reminder that, you got to get out there and tell your story and package it up with best practices. And then you'll be asked to speak at conferences. And so I did that for a long time. And then, I don't know, maybe it was probably 8 years ago or so, I was asked if I would tell more of the founding story and get out and go to some other conferences, because they were asking, people want to hear the story. So I started doing more of that and loving that, and kind of gave up a lot of my day-to-day responsibility at Constant Contact. Still there, advising and helping in different areas, but I really was going external to get out and speak more and more, and which I loved. And so after the company sold, did even more of that. And the first conference I ever did, 4 other people walked up and said, "We have a conference. Will you keynote our conference?" And it just sort of spiraled from there. And now I'm fortunate to speak at some of the top conferences, ranked as some of the top conferences by Inc. and Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine. And so I'm fortunate there. And in the last year and a half, I spoke to over 1 million people virtually. So.
Do you use PowerPoint when you speak, Alec?
Most of the time I don't. Most of the time I don't. If I had a PowerPoint, it just has an image supporting what I'm saying. I don't, here's the 5th bullet of, the slide for, so I just, and I adapt the talk. I mean, one of the things when I first went to conferences, in the earlier days, and I would hear other speakers and stuff, I'd want to run up to them and thank them, or tell them about something they said that resonated with me, or see if we could maybe meet, because I think there's an opportunity to work together. And you could never get to them. They would speak, and their handlers would block them, or they would just rush off and leave the conference. And I said, boy, if anyone ever asks me to speak, I'm going to be the first one in the room and last one to leave. I want to hear the other talks. So oftentimes I don't put stuff on slides, because I don't want to be that person who didn't attend the conference, get up to speak, and either say something that's already been said by others, or contradict what's being said by others. And so there's, I like to hear, what I like to get a feel for the room, feel for the audience, and feel for what people are saying. So I usually don't use PowerPoint unless it's just a title slide, with my stuff on it, or images to support, the conversation. And I adapt the talk usually each time.
So how do you, and I'm new to this. I was a professor, so I spoke in front of a completely different audience for different reasons. And I'm still learning the keynotes thing, even though I went through it already. Maybe you got some tips for how to become a great speaker. If you're not memorizing this stuff per se, and you're not using a PowerPoint, how do you last for an hour and keep their emotions glued to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess a couple of things that are top of mind here. So the first thing is that anytime you speak, think of it like you're watching a movie, right? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if we're watching a movie and all of a sudden the ending just drops off and you're like, that's it? Like, it honestly just finished. Like, I just wasted 2 hours of my time because of that. The audience is expecting you to be able to complete that movie series and have a good ending, right? So we oftentimes spend too much time in the setup about us, and what we do and what we've done, or we spend up too much in the middle about, some of the meat of what the topic we're talking about, and then we rush that ending. And you can't. You've got to make time, really honestly make time for
land the plane.
Yeah, for all the way through, right? And then you come back around and kind of revisit and summarize what you talked about and the importance and so on. The second thing is make it engaging. I'll ask show of hand questions. If it's a really big room, you can't pass a mic around. But if it's a smaller room, I'll ask them, can we get mics out in the audience? I want to ask, has anyone done X or Y? And can you share your experience, or have you, whatever that is, and get people talking, or show of hands. And I'll ask a lot of questions throughout to set the stage for the next kind of topic I'm going to talk about, to what percent of the audience is doing something. And so I think that, that's really important. And I think the other is, is just your presence, right? You've got to get yourself fired up, to get up on that stage and be excited to talk and walk around the stage and as if you're talking to each person individually. And oftentimes, sometimes someone will get to a spot on the stage and just stand there. And I get if they're filming it and they give you kind of X's to stay within, but you can still sort of move around and show a little bit of body language of that you're into this, and I talk with my hands. So it's usually if there was an orchestra in front of me, they'd be playing a song because the hands are always going, so.
Just don't put a drink in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. I'll knock that right off. Yeah, no question. But yeah, so those are just a couple of quick tips. And I think the last thing I would just say is a lot of people get nervous. So like, oh my God, this is a big audience. I haven't spoken to audience of this size, or, they get kind of worked up over it. But just remember, like, you are the expert in whatever you're saying, because no one knows what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Right. And no one's going to challenge, no one's challenging you. You're not stating the facts of some medical research that they could challenge you on having, said something incorrectly. Like, you're sharing your thoughts, your opinion. This is my point of view, and you're an expert at it. So say it with confidence and don't worry about, what others are thinking. And we usually get most nervous with people we know. If we're at like a company meeting, a lot of people get nervous because they're in front of coworkers and, they can out them for something they say because they all know the business so well. But when you're out speaking and, most people they're not going to know what you're going to say next. And so you say it with confidence and you'll find they're going to lean in and they're going to want to listen to you.
Thank you, Alec. I appreciate that. The reason I was zoned in on that was, so as a professor, I had about 30, 40 people in a class at a time. So I did that for about 10 years. I taught at over 6 universities. That's one setting, right? And then you have the clubhouse thing. So top host for one of the top entrepreneur clubs here. I had over 1 million people come through my rooms. That's a totally different setting. I'm there on my feet for 10 hours, no problem. But now the thing that bothers me is that I see a lot of these like top influencers, they will go on stage for 2 hours and just talk the whole time. I can't get my head around that without like actually getting involved with the audience the way I do in Clubhouse. To me, I just like, I don't know. Is there some, and I don't even know if that's my style. Like, I'm trying to figure out if I want to do it. I like what you said. Like, if I want to do those 2 hour talks, maybe an hour of Q&A. Like, I just think 2 hours of anyone talking straight is just without any feedback is just, it's too much.
Now, is it too much for you or too much for them?
For me.
Right. But it isn't about you.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
So I'm just kind of poking at that because when you're up there, like, I'm up there to serve and I'm up there to pay it forward and I'm up there to share something and provide them golden nuggets. And I bet you could have 2 hours of content that someone's sitting there like, wow, I learned so much. Right. And so if you make it about them and you're really focused on, the things that you're saying, that they'll benefit from. Mm-hmm. Like so oftentimes when I speak, they'll say, well, tell us, we really want to talk about like the scaling and the going public and this, that, and the other. And I said, I want to keep the talk. I want to be in their shoes. This audience is entrepreneurs. I want to go back to the attic when there were 3 of us. What are the things we did that set us apart and got us going? And these pillars for achieving success, early days, lessons learned. I want to live there. All the other stuff is you can go read all the financial statements. You could go hear the story, and that's exciting. But I have seen some of the top unicorn company CEOs, founders, whatever, get up there and talk about all the big number stuff, and everyone zones out because they're like, right. I can't even fathom. I can't even pay bills tomorrow. How am I going to ever get to there? And they sort of tune out. And so I just said, as I'm talking, I'm going to always put myself in the shoes of the people that are sitting there, because I've been there many times. And so then I know that what I'm saying is going to resonate with them, and they're going to take away things that they run up to me afterwards and like, that was amazing. I've learned so many things. There's some stuff I used to do and I got off from doing, I should do again. And I picked up some great tips of things I could be doing. And a lot of them don't take money. It's just these things to advance the business. So I really try to make sure that I'm I'm really focusing and honing in on the audience and giving them something that they can benefit from.
That's a great point, Alec. And just to clarify, if it was someone like you or Elon Musk, someone I'm really interested in, yeah, I'll sit there for 2 hours, definitely. But like you just highlighted, if there's someone just spitting numbers out, it just gets boring. That's what I was talking about. But you have an excellent point. So thank you, Alec. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
All right. All right. So let's step back for a moment to understand what you're an expert in. I just want to take it at ground level for a lot of the audience. So we're going to talk about startups. So let's first start with what is a startup business, maybe a minute or two.
Yeah, and so I'll go one step before that and I'll answer it. So the I'll often ask a show of hands. This is a question I'll ask on stage. Show of hands, how many of you in the room think you're an innovator? And about 20% of the hands go up. And then I'm like, how many of you on any day, week, or month experience a product or service that could be delivered better? Add these features, change the service, the way the service is being delivered, and that there's room for improvement. How many experience that? And every hand goes up. And I said, but if you're passionate about whatever that is, and you start to noodle on it, you share it with others, you maybe start to work on it, you pull others into the mix to help you, then you're taking action on an idea where there's a room for an opportunity. And so then you're an innovator if you take action. So we all can be innovators if we take action. So now 85% of these are my stats, 85% of the businesses that are starting today are an existing industry with products or services that someone's come in and said, they're asleep at the wheel and we can do this better. And 15% are things that didn't exist before. Constant Contact, a great example. There was no digital marketing solutions for small business. SaaS hadn't existed when we started, and eventually we were one of the first two software apps on the software as a service platform. And so we were building a new category. So you have to make awareness around the category, email marketing for small business, and then build the brand, Constant Contact. So others get the ride along benefit of if you're building a category and you're marketing to promote that category, others that come along could benefit from that as competitors. But that's you just got to kind of stay ahead of them, with your offering and your features and so on. So a startup is sometimes just an idea that where you see there's a wedge in an industry that's asleep, and I could show you some examples of things that I've done in those very examples. We've had some very successful companies with consumer product and B2B and medical device. And so there's a lot of other industries I'm in where we've had success finding a 75-year-old market that has billions in sales annually that they were asleep at the wheel. And if you want to see an example, I can certainly show you one. And so there's, then it's just getting your target market feedback, realizing you're onto something. They get wide-eyed and see what you're doing is exciting. And then that fuels you to keep going and start to invest, time into this to then start to build the feature set and start to build the product offering to get it out to your target market.
What is an entrepreneur, and what is that person's relationship to a startup?
Yeah, so the entrepreneur, entrepreneur is someone who's committing their time and their effort to take an idea forward, right? It's not, you're either employed by someone else, or you're self-employed, or a solopreneur, you're alone, or you're going with others, co-founders, taking an idea and working on something to bring it forward. So the startup is what your idea and what you're doing, and the entrepreneur is the one who's going to drive the doing. Yeah,
that's what I thought you would say. I just wanted to clarify. So you can't have a startup without an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but there's also phases of a startup. So the true entrepreneur, is the one who's coming in with the idea, the co-founders, the ones that are like taking this thing forward.
Yeah.
It might be underway. You might have some initial customers. You might have some paying customers. You might be underway. You're still in the startup phase. It's early and you're just getting going, and others may jump in and so you might be then bringing in staff of, and hiring people for different disciplines and areas where they'd still be an entrepreneur, in some sense, because it's early, but they're coming in, into the business a little bit later than the ones that are incubating this thing and bringing it to, initially to customers for the first time.
Thank you, Alec. Sorry to digress on this. This is a very interesting. I write for Entrepreneur magazine, and I find the concept of entrepreneur very interesting.
Yeah.
I see a lot of these CEOs that work for really big companies, and multi-billion-dollar companies. Would you consider them an entrepreneur, even though they didn't start the company? They just come in after the machine's already built.
Yeah, so it depends. So I use the term entrepreneur in that instance, right? If that large company is innovating and changing and creating and looking for new and improved ways to do things, and then they're entrepreneurial and as a business, and then they're entrepreneurs within that. Even though it's a large company, they're finding ways to fund testing through creating new products that might be adjacent to existing products, enhancing your existing product, or finding new industries that are unrelated to what you do so far. And there's great examples of very innovative businesses that are out there. So I mean, the CEO of a large multi-billion-dollar company wouldn't be an entrepreneur, but within the business, I'm sure there are many that are entrepreneurs finding ways to improve what they're doing. And as I said, and they might be entrepreneurial as a business, where they're allowing for innovation time and people to work on new ideas and present those ideas for possible either new market opportunities or new and improved offerings in the existing markets.
Thank you, Al. Excellent response. All right, so following up with the startup question, do you think that you would have been as successful if you invested in, let's say, non-startups instead? And let me clarify that. Non-startups being exactly what we're talking about here, maybe companies that already existed, different ranges, small to large, whatever.
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that. The first is me as an entrepreneur. I was going earlier and earlier and looking to start something brand new repeatedly. So investing my time and effort, sometimes money, that was a mission and a focus for me. That's a lot different in an investment strategy. So I'm part of a venture fund, G20 Ventures, and we do early stage tech investments on the East Coast. So I get my fill with helping them, sourcing, vetting, selecting, and helping scale, the ones that we're invested in. And I also have done some things on my own. I don't have time to, honestly, I used to do some startups on my own. I don't have time to do that alone. That's what G20 helps fulfill that for me. But in other industries, I'm invested in things that have had repeat success. And so in real estate and some other areas. So I would just say that the investment strategy, fulfilling kind of the different areas within alternative investment and some other areas that, I would typically work in with ones that have had success, previously. So have a track record and have done so and have had success in doing that on the investment side. So just treat those differently as what I do with my time, and primarily, and then what I would do with an investment strategy.
You're basically a well-rounded business person. Any environment you throw you in, you're going to succeed.
Well, I'm doing my hardest work to make sure that happens. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Alec. All right. So how do you build a business from the ground up? Can you walk us through the secret process?
Yeah, there's all kinds of, formulas and all that. Mine is a grassroots, and I think, the first, as I said earlier, the first thing is you have an idea, package that up and go tell the story to your target market. Figure exactly who your target market is. And don't say small business unless you can define exactly who it is. Because if we go around a room and ask 10 people to define small business, you're going to get 10 different answers. So you really need to know very, very specific to, is it the very small businesses on Main Street that are, under 10 employees with so much in revenue, so many customers, maybe some geography, et cetera. Like you really have to be really well defined on that. And then you're going to go into your networking, you're going to find folks that know people that fit your target market, and you're going to go talk to them. I mean, step one, just go talk to them, and as we discussed earlier, and get their feedback on your idea, and understand if it's something that they find that they would even pay for. So that's step one, and then you're going to work on the idea, and you're going to prototype it. Don't go investing a ton of money building a mobile app for a new application to go give it to someone to say, hey, I've got this new software. Like, you could prototype it and simulate the screen flows, between, and let someone give you that feedback, iterate it, work on it, and then take the money and invest it to build the mobile app, if it's, or the desktop app, or whatever it is. Like, a lot of times people work in a vacuum, will build it and then present it to someone. And I've just seen so many startups are like, well, we have to redo it. The feedback just didn't really give us, they're not comfortable with the way it flows, and this, that, and the other. You can avoid all that. And so we oftentimes will work in a vacuum, and just getting it out and building things to get that feedback. That's how you get going. And once you get some feedback and you're onto something, you figure out how you're going to invest, to build it. And if you don't have the money to invest, then you might bring other team members in. Don't always have to make them co-founders unless they're real strategic in a lane you're not in, but you might hire fractional people or give them equity in exchange for their time, and just be scrappy about finding or raise some money or invest family and friends and family money or whatever to then start to fund this and get it built and get it out there and start to get the flywheel of the business going.
And of course, inject marketing in there at some point too.
Yeah, initially it's for me, it's grassroots. Just it's hand to hand. Just getting out and talking to those businesses, and if you want to accelerate all of this, then you got to take in a lot more money. If you want to put marketing into the mix early on, you're going to need money. Oftentimes, you get going and you can wait. If you're a first mover, you don't want to wait too long. So you want to get an injection of funds to do your marketing early. But once the flywheel of the business gets going and you start making some money, then you can allocate funds at that point toward marketing or pour gas on the marketing then, because you have the revenue to work with beyond anything you might take from an investment. But if you're going to go out and you're going to raise other people, raise money from others, especially if they're angel investors, formal accredited angel investors, or venture, and anyone who's going to be sort of in the mix and want to be updated, they're going to see use of proceeds, and one of those needs to be marketing. They're not going to want to, they'll invest in potentially building it out, finishing the application, but they're going to know you're bringing it to market. They're not going to, they don't want to hear, well, we finished building it, now we need more money to market it. So you got to make sure you're raising them enough to make sure marketing's in the mix, especially if you're taking external funding.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
All right. So talking about IPOs now. So why would the owners of a company want to have an IPO? That's an initial public offering, folks, IPO. And what are some alternatives to IPO?
Yeah. So the bottom line is having an exit, right? An exit. So everyone in the mix, for the most part, is going to have options in the business, which would then turn to shares with an exit. The stock of any company is worthless, until there's an exit, where it's putting a value on it, and it's in it, and it's a currency, that can be exchanged, right? So if someone, the option would be to go public, and there's, you've got to hit a lot of different metrics on revenue side and expense and the number of customers and all kinds of different sort of things that each industry has, whatever those metrics need to be and if you're getting close to those, then you might have an eye on an IPO, or the more common exit is a potential acquisition. In the earlier days, it could be an acqui-hire, just to hire all the staff and get the technology into a bigger company. And usually that's around strategic partnerships and alliances, and where someone is working with you. They might even make an investment in you as long as they don't take you off of your strategy. I'll tell you one quick story. Very early on in two companies, we met strategic partners. And in one case, they were going to give us $100K, and another case, $250K. We were trying to figure out how we're going to even make payroll next week. and these guys are going to give us that kind of money. But the stipulation was they wanted us to tweak the offering to fit into sort of a little bit of a derivative of the target market we're after. So we're going to have to change things for them specifically. And so there's this conversation that you need to have. Do we stay the course and going, with what we believed in to go to our target market the way we thought we would, or would we work with someone else to, that would change the offering a bit, but we would get money in the door, quickly. And in both instances, what do you think we did? Do we take the money or stay the course?
Depends on what was in your head at the time. Do you want to lose control, or do you want to keep control of the company?
Well, it's not even control. It's just that we were going to change the offering. The offering was going to be morphed into something to help their specific industry, and so then we would be tied into helping that industry more so than the general industry of, say, small business. So in both cases, we didn't take the money. And that was a tough decision. We had to really debate it because we needed the money, but it was going to take us off course from our goal to help and our mission to help small businesses. But the bottom line is there's strategic partners that can come into the mix that would come in early with you, support you, get you to target market, and then eventually, offer your offering and see success with it, and potentially say, no, we want to buy you. And that happened with Constant Contact and two other of the businesses I was involved with got acquired by strategic partnerships because they saw the value in what we were doing. So an exit of either an IPO or an acquisition are your two main choices. But I don't go into starting a business thinking about like a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, like, what's your goal? They're like, I want to have an IPO, or I want to get acquired.
Yeah, I hear that.
I don't think about that. That's 3 years out, 5 years out, whenever that is. I think about what are we doing every day to help our target market, and be passionate about serving them and doing more for them and better for them. And if you delight them, they tell others, you get referrals, from there, and you get that flywheel of the business going. And then you set your sort of your vision for, how many of those I want to help 1 million small businesses. We want to help 1 million small businesses do this, or whatever that number is. It's 10,000, it's 100,000, it's 1 million, it's 10 million. And you stay the course on that. And next thing you know, you're looking at the business and saying, wow, we've really accomplished a lot. Our revenues are, out through the roof, number of customers, we don't have churn, everyone's staying because we're delighting them. They're telling others, those are the things that you focus on. And if you do that right, then there'll be a potential, exit at the end of that rainbow. If you take external investment, they're going to want to see an exit because they're not investing in you to get stock to pay, wallpaper their bathroom. They want to take that, see that those options and those shares turn into something to get a return on their investment. So they have an eye toward, out of the gate, giving you money with an eye toward potential exit. And
you can always go to debt route too.
There's a lot of you could do, there's safes and convertible notes, and you can also get loans. There's a lot of other options. I was just specific to the IPO to acquisition. It's usually you could be funding this a lot of different ways than even taking in angel investment or venture investment. So yeah.
Thank you, Alec. Appreciate it. And maybe a minute or less. What do you like to do for fun?
So as I sit here with drumsticks close, I'm a drummer, so I love to certainly drum, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of friends that are musicians, and I've jumped up on stages all over to jump in with bands as they're touring around, and so I've had a lot of fun in doing that. So
hey, Alex, sorry to pause for a second. Jim Cathcart's coming on my stage on Friday. I just found out that he is an awesome guitar player. And he's right in your wheelhouse too. Do you guys ever hook up and play together?
We haven't. I just wrote a testimonial for his new book. He and Lisa Patrick's new book. So, but yeah, we haven't hooked up. But at some of these conferences, I've asked the host, can you survey the audience to find out, or whoever's attending or the other speakers, what instruments they play, and let's get a bunch of equipment in and do a jam. And I've done that a few times at a couple conferences where we were able to coordinate that. So
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah, fun. So I'm a drummer, and I love to be on the water. So I love to sail, and if I need to get there faster these days, a motorboat will do. So
Or a giant yacht, huh?
yeah, listen, I'm America's guest. Let's be clear. Other friends' boats, homes in exotic places, planes. I'm America's guest.
You hear that, folks? You got a big mansion, Alex, your man.
Yeah, exactly. You need a guest who will clean up after himself and and cook your meals. I'm in.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. All right, Alex, would you want to be the richest person in the world? Maybe a minute or less.
What I want to be? Yeah. So I don't measure rich by a bank account, but rich in the heart and rich in the soul. And, I feel good every day knowing that I'm helping Main Street, small businesses, and for the most part, and especially in the inner cities, where people are setting up a business. They're not thinking about exits and acquisitions and IPOs. They're thinking about creating a legacy or providing for their family, or creating a business that their kids could take over one day. And all of us have a skill that we could go into an inner city or to a small business anywhere on Main Street near us, and we could help them with the skill that we have. And so for me, like whenever I travel for business, I try to carve out time to walk Main Street, to go into those businesses and talk to them. And what are their challenges? And oftentimes they're customers of a product that I've created. And so they want to have that moment, but it's more about just really understanding how they're doing. And especially in today's times, they need help. So I feel fulfilled in life and feel I am the richest person because I get to work with small businesses around the world.
Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, Alex. So we have just a few more questions left. I just want to get a quick check on your time to make sure we got enough. I think if we do it at about a minute per question, we should be good. If that's
yeah,
okay.
It's all good. And at some point, I'd like to do a quick show and tell as I talk.
Absolutely. And if you, I was going to say, maybe you want to play the drums or whatever you want to do. I'll jump in, do the air guitar.
All right. I could play a mean air guitar as well. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I got a friend who won he showed me a picture. He's like, I won a show for air guitar. I'm like, wow. It was like a major competition. I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, and he's jumping on stage.
I love it.
All right.
I love it.
Thank you, Alec. Okay. Actually, his last name was yours.
Was it? Okay.
About it. Yeah.
All right. There aren't many of us, and oftentimes when I say my name fast, they're like Howard Stern. I'm like, no, Alec Stern. I said, although I said Howard and I are not related, but we look alike.
All right. So let's see. What are some lessons that you think many businesses had to learn during the great pandemic depression? So this particular moment we have right now, maybe you can speak to the audience. There's a lot of people out there struggling. What are some lessons that you think many businesses had to learn during this time?
Yeah, so I think the first main one, and which I spent a lot of time talking to thousands during this, but you got to get off the hamster wheel of day-to-day tactics of being in the business and work on the business. So look at it. I've asked, what's your 3-year vision? Are you on track to hit that 3-year vision? And reluctantly, half of them said no. So it's either you got to change the vision or you got to change what you're doing every day because you're not on track to get to where you want to be. And so you've got to work on the strategy and you got to work on how to adapt. And so, virtual is here to stay. Every single business will have to figure out the mix of many have, but will continue to figure out the mix of virtual and, and how do you incorporate that in? So I'll give you one example. I was talking to an art gallery. I'm like, well, where's all the art? It's just blocks from where I live. And they're like, well, we have it all locked up. And when, when things open back up, we'll kind of, have everyone come back into the showroom and so on. I'm like, why wait? Why don't you do a curated art show via virtual, and then invite all of your current customers and bring on the artists to talk about what motivated them to paint that painting or get into painting, and then ask everyone to create watch parties to send out to their friends. And lo and behold, talking to the gallery, they're like, we sold a painting, and I said, who bought it? They're like, one of our customers' friends who was on a watch party. I'm like, well, so there you go, right? And so retailers taking their clothing and doing a trunk sale, or there's all kinds of ways. The chef, bring home, send emails you the shopping list, and you get on a Zoom and you do you cook with the chef, right? Here's all the stuff you need to prepare before we go live. And then the family goes live and they're cooking the meal, and there's pairings for the parents with the wines and whatever. And then they're enjoying a meal, and they do this virtual, cooking experience, family cooking experience. Like all of the businesses, and I talked to many, there were breakthrough moments to talk about how can you adapt and adjust, because you can't leave your customers behind. And this is in business in general. Your best prospect is your current customer, because their influence to others, bringing them into the fold, will drive your growth of your business. Everyone thinks customers are over on one side. I got to go find prospects on another side. It's all integrated in. And so staying in touch with your customers and doing things and keeping yourself top of mind, especially during these times, and doing things virtually, will only help, expand the business through those experiences. And so many are doing them. I saw some amazing examples other than the ones I mentioned, where people are adapting to find new ways to bring their products and services to their target customers and the prospects and referrals through them.
Thank you, Alex. That's awesome. And these businesses, they really need to think outside the box to stay afloat. It's just a shame so many businesses, at least here in Philadelphia, I just watched some of my favorite businesses that have been around for 100+ years just completely get destroyed. So it's good to talk about this, so that they have an opportunity to learn and figure out a way to expand their business. But thank you.
Sure.
All right. So next question: can one book change the world?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, it could be, there's so many great golden nuggets in every book. Could be something specific in a chapter to the book, the overall book itself. But I don't, just a quick answer, I'd say no. I think it would be a combination of things, and different viewpoints and things that kind of in the melting pot of what you're reading or learning about, to then figure out what's the solution to change the world. So I don't know if there's any silver bullet in any one book that could do that.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it. All right. And what role has networking played in your life?
So I'm a connector, and I'm here to admit it. So in life, I've always been a connector, and finding ways to bring people together. And so I would say networking has been huge. During the whole pandemic, we talked about social distancing, physical distancing. I wrote a blog post about long distancing, and that's really going back into your life and saying, who's been influential in your life and that you haven't, connected with in a long time. Was it a teacher or a coach or a mentor or a neighbor, a family member, whoever it may be, someone you've done business with before, an investor, and reach out, and catch up. Ask them what they're up to. And I found some amazing things that collaborations and some stuff, just sort of reaching out into my network and taking time to go back in time to talk to some folks I hadn't talked to in a long time. So I think there's that aspect of it. And then there's the, eventually we'll get back into the face-to-face. I would always attend networking events to, just the meet and greets to see what people are up to. And you'll find, that there's a lot of pairings. I love that when I'm in a room and I meet someone and they're like, oh, and I'm working on X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, do you know so-and-so over there was in that space retired out of that space and is mentoring, helping people in that space. You want to meet him or her and put people together. So I think connecting and mentoring is key for, any success. Within 2 degrees of separation of yourself, the answer is there for anyone you want. If you want to find a target customer to talk to, a mentor, a strategic partner, a possible investor, it's all in front of you. But networking is what's going to be the key to unlock the opportunity.
Thank you, Alec. And the follow up with that is mentoring important, and who are some of your mentors?
Yeah, it's very, very important. And I've had a lot of mentors throughout my life. And most of the people I sought out to say, okay, who could help us the most in this? Right. And there were a lot of people that I didn't know, but I reached out, and talking to them about what we were doing and getting them engaged to want to potentially get involved, to be an advisor, whatever it may be. And so I've had many in my life. I don't really personally like to call out anyone in particular because there've been so many. But when I think about mentors, I think about people you look up to, and I will tell you that to me is the small businesses on Main Street, and also those, I call it urban innovation, but those that are working in the inner city. Like, I look up to them more than anyone that's had great success in a field, because they're the lifeblood of our economy, and the GDP is centered around small business, and it's in my DNA to help small businesses, and having been one, as an entrepreneur many times, I know that the struggle. I've personally experienced it. I've seen the obstacles, I've seen the headaches, and I've also seen the enjoyment of the success. So the bottom line is that's usually where I migrate when I think about who do I look up to.
Thank you, Alec. Can one person change the world?
I don't think so, because I never support an I story in everything I've ever done. It's a we, and it's the old African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. I've stayed in my lane, brought other key people in, moved down in title, and put people above and next to and below. And like, all of these things are just what's best to advance something. And, especially in the business realm. So I don't think there would be any one person, because the person can do it alone, and they would stay in their lane of what they're good at. And they may be really good at delivering the message, but there's going to be a team behind them that are going to actually do the execution. And in every instance for me, I stayed in my lane of what I'm good at. And then I've always made sure we brought in, top folks to round that out. So I think and could any team change the world? Sure. But I don't think that any one person could.
Thank you, Alec. All right, we're going to move into, we just have a few more finance questions now. What are your favorite finance books?
Yeah, so I'm not. I studied finance, marketing and finance. So I don't have a favorite specific to finance, but there are a lot of Sharon Lecter, who knows your mentor. She's a dear friend, and I wrote an endorsement of Exit Rich. Is a great book that she's recently co-authored, also with Michelle Tucker Sealer, and so both I know well, and so there's just some on specific areas that like that one that I like, but I'm not really I don't read finance books, to be honest with you. Yeah.
What do you read mostly?
Yeah, so I like a lot of business books in general. I've collaborated on a bunch of books, with some of the collaborations around successful people's stories, and so I've been in a variety of different books like that. But my favorite book is a go-to, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I think that's a great book to really step back and think about what you're doing and bring a product or service to market, and how to bring it to market to really have it focus on the why of why it's important to your target market versus the features and benefits, and the how and the what. Yeah. So
that's a great book. Thank you, Al. All right. So 30 seconds. Do we need money to survive?
Yeah, I mean, money. Not necessarily. You don't always need money to survive. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done without money that would lead to survival. And so I don't believe that you need money to survive, and people that are waiting to get the money to do things, you can do a lot without it. And especially as we just talked about, networking and connecting and getting other people in the mix. And you can find a lot of people that'll help you. I'll give you one real quick example. So when we were starting out with Constant Contact, we had a bunch of developers that were bringing in. We had interns, we had all kinds of folks that are going to work with us, and we needed computers for them to work on. And I happen to be in the space with previous companies, So I called like a big distributor of, Sun computers, and who I used to work with in business. And I said, I'm kind of in a bind. We need a bunch of computers. We don't really have the funding for it right now. Do you have any suggestions or anywhere I can get maybe some older equipment that, people are, sunsetting or something? And he's like, let me give it some thought. And he's like, give me your address. I'll see if I have some stuff. I'll send it to you. So we arriving in a shipment days later, 10 brand new Sun computer systems for 10 engineers, brand new.
They gave it to you for free?
Well, he gave them to me, and I said, like, when we get funding, we're going to pay you for this. He's like, we can talk about that when we get that, when we get there. Don't worry about it. Just enjoy, like, do what you got to do. I believe in you. And so through a relationship, we got all those 10 computers. A year later, and when we got some funding, I said, well, send me a bill and we'll pay you. He's like, I wrote them off. Don't worry about it. They're my gift to you.
So Alec, in my last book, it's called The Survival of the Richest. I call that concept survival by a third party. When someone else is giving you something for free, you're basically surviving or prospering by a third party if you take it to a different level. What's that company that gave you the 10 computers, they're going to need money to survive at some point, unless they're also doing the same strategy. Kind of like a parent to a child, right? So you have a kid, they don't need money to survive. They got their parents, right? But at some point when they leave the nest, unless someone else will support them, or if their parents will make them lifelong kids, they're going to need money. Would you agree with that in that case?
Yeah. So in this case, I think what they ended up doing was they went back to the manufacturer and said that we need demo systems, and the manufacturer sent them to them, and he sent them to us. So I don't think it was a situation where he went out and bought 10 computers, and I think he used his relationships to get those sent, as demo units. So there was no cost. There was no cost to him for it, and wasn't certainly at that point, it was the great surprise a year later to say he wasn't going to charge us. So he used it went down the line for him using his relationships to get those so that we can have them, and my relationship with him so that we could, move forward,
Yeah. The beauty of networking.
Yeah, exactly. And relationships.
You're right.
We had a great, strong, long-standing relationship. I took great care of him when he was a customer of mine in a prior, company relationship, and then came back around and asked to see if he could help, and then he blew me away with how far he took that.
Wow. Next question, Alec, is along the same line. Is finance necessary?
Finance necessary in terms of financing, like
the science, learning the science of finance. I define finance a little bit different than everybody else. Basically, it's the management of wealth for individuals, groups, and organizations. So the academic version of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I mean, structure around money and structure around survival and investment and allocation, and there's all kinds of things that you need to be thinking about with regard to it. I think it's very important. I mean, I always look up to anyone on the finance side of the business for all that they do, and it's not something that interests me. But I certainly have worked with many who are really successful at that, and can you can have an idea and you can bring something forward, but it has to be it has to tell a story from a finance perspective, and you have to be able to plan projections and budgeting and your income statement and cash flow and balance sheet, and like all of the semantics around finance have to be in the mix, and you can't be winging that. You've got to be smart about it, and you've got to and from the get-go you've got to have some systems in place and operationalize a lot of things that finance will help with, controls and some valuable actionable insights based on what's happening with the numbers and so on. So very, very important.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We just got 3 more easy questions left, and they tie into your purpose, et cetera. How important is having a purpose in business, and what is your purpose?
Yeah. So I mean, purpose and direction, clearly it's very important. You might be winging it at, kind of just trying to test things, trying to see what sticks, that's fine. But eventually you got to have a purpose with what you're doing. Some people will just want to tinker on an idea and just keep tinkering away and never do anything with it, or never bring it to market or get it in front of a target customer. And I think my best example of someone I've known for a long time, it's been 8 years while they're incubating an idea. Well, so there's not a purpose to put a stake in the ground and consider what's the 1.0 version of this and get it out into the target market and get that feedback and iterate. They're working in a vacuum and they're working on getting it just right 8 years later. So the bottom line is that you've got to have a purpose and what's driving you to work on this? Is it a fun side project that you're just enjoying doing it, or are you trying to build a business around this, or trying to solve a problem? And like, what's your purpose to, from the get-go? Like, you've got to really understand that. Otherwise you'll just be sitting there swimming in the idea. So
Spinning wheels.
Spinning wheels.
Thank you. What is your purpose, Alec?
Yeah. So I've got, there's a longer answer, but the bottom line is I'm co-founder of 6 Things right now. And so I've literally, I'm an idea guy, and I love to innovate. And I like to take things and get it out in that target market early and see if we're onto something. And so of the 6 things, I think we've got, 4 in market and now generating revenue. And the other 2 are just bigger, bigger things that need a little bit more time before getting into market. One's a medical device, very disruptive medical device. So it's going to take more time. So I have an innovation think tank with 2 others where we've created 4 of those ideas. We've sold 1, but we have three more just through that innovation think tank, we've disrupted large markets, which I have a couple of examples I can show at the end here. And where we saw that an opportunity there was room for improvement in a market that was asleep, doing it. This is how we always did it. And we said, well, there's a better way. And we patented new ways to do things and have had success with doing so.
Thank you, Alec. Appreciate it. All right, 2 more questions left. First, what would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
Yeah, so my window is a lot shorter. I haven't really thought much about the next. In 10 years, I'll be on a boat or a beach somewhere, but certainly.
You'll be bored.
Yeah, I don't know about that. This next run, I think. Honestly, I will always be in the mix. So, I've been asked to teach. Go do guest speaking at Harvard and MIT and all over. So, I'd love to potentially, teach. I would love to continue the speaking. I don't know if I'd necessarily be taking on new ideas myself, but it's mentoring and maybe jumping in and helping with other ideas. So I'll always be in the mix, but not being a co-founder of a company probably in 10 years. But my window is sort of really in the next 3 to evolve several businesses to solve problems that were identified that it was a market that could use some improvement. So we're finding those and cranking them up and doing our best. And
author your first book.
And yeah, first 2 hopefully.
First 2, yeah.
I'll start with 1, but yeah. So we're in the editing phases of 1, so we'll finish that.
Yeah, if you need any help with that, let me know. I'd be happy to help you too.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yep. All right, and last question: what would you like to be your legacy?
That's so funny. I don't really like to use the word legacy. I'll take legend over legacy, but and if you see over my shoulder, there's a bunch of awards, and they were like, "We're going to give you a legacy award at our conference." I'm like, "Legend award." I'm still here. I don't want a legacy award yet. But anyway, so just that I gave it my all to help small businesses and relentless in finding ways to create new and improved offerings for products and services that are either in market today or find a new way to do it. So I've been living into that, and I would say most people would come back and say that I paid it forward. All the speaking, all the stuff that I'm doing is to really just try, and hopefully people listening have, there's some golden nuggets that they took away to say, okay, that I've learned something here, or gave me a different perspective, or it's motivated me to now just get out and talk to my target market because we haven't done that much, or whatever it may be. So I'd like people to just say that I helped motivate them to succeed.
Now, Al, you said that the small businesses are the lifeblood of the economy, which I agree. And by you helping these small businesses through all the different things you're doing, I mean, you volunteer a lot. You volunteer to come on Clubhouse, help entrepreneurs. There was a few thousand people just that night alone. Wouldn't you say that you're one person that you have changed the world, even if it's just a little bit, by helping out these people who basically drive the world?
Yeah, so I would say that's again a we, because I've done so many things with others that I feel we have changed, in several instances have changed the world, or at least have changed the way people do things, and found better ways to do things. So yeah, I mean, I haven't, as I said, I don't go alone. So I stay in my lane and bring others along with me. And that's one of the success formulas for me personally.
You believe in the Rastafarian concept, I and I?
I and I.
Like basically we're all together. It's
Yeah.
just, it's not I anymore. It's all of us. It's I and I, it's
Okay.
we.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I didn't know the concept, but I would support that for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, we're, raising the water level of anything, you can't do it alone, right? And so it's the we in anything we're doing. And sometimes it's even if you're in an industry and you might be the first mover and competitors show up, the collective of you there's enough business for everyone, and you're all help raising the water level of something specific to what you do. I mean, it happens every day. We're always looking for doing. I mean, I personally find, and I help giving back, paying it forward, helping in any way. There's many people out there that are doing that, and that's the we, collective we. Even though some of us may not even be working together, there's a lot of people that are helping make that happen.
Thank you, Alec. Appreciate it. Very, very humble man, and I really respect that about you. So Alex, Alec, I'm going to leave the floor to you.
Sure.
Basically, talk about anything you want. You want to plug certain products or services you're working on. Tell us about your website, where they can find more information. Anything you want to talk about, the floor is yours, Alec.
Thank you. Yeah. So I talked about it. I just want to show. So we all know we know the cane industry, right? This is a walking cane. And we know that, a lot of people struggle and need a reacher grabber to pick stuff up. So we actually have the patent of a concealed grabber. Right?
Wow.
So inside the cane, so you're walking along and, you drop your pen or whatever it is, and you pick it up, and then you convert it back into a walking cane. So it gives somebody their, independence, convenience, and mobility. Because you're not going to walk around with two products. Sometimes you leave a room and leave your grasper behind and you drop something, or you leave the home. And so the example, my mom had double knee replacement surgery, and as part of the recovery, she had struggled bending down to pick things up. She got to her car in a parking garage and dropped her keys, and her phone was dead, as usual. And so she had to wait there. She had to wait till someone could come to pick the keys up for her. So if she had the reacher grasper cane that we created, she could have just engaged it as a grasper, picked the keys up, and went on her way. And so that was just taking two industries that hadn't really changed much, but on the cane side or the grabber side, and we just put those two together like the Reese's peanut butter cup, and created that. And then we had several others where we found a market that we disrupted with creating a better offering than what was out there. So that just ties into the conversation earlier about, there's existing markets that are asleep at the wheel, that are big, that someone could find an opportunity to kind of wedge in and create something new. And and bring it to market. And the Reach Your Grasper Canes on Amazon and reachyourgraspercane.com, our website, like people can find that if they want. For connecting with me, the best thing is to go to my website, Alec Speaks, ALEC Speaks, SPEAKS, AlecSpeaks.com. All my social channels are there. You can just click to follow me anywhere. It also talks about a lot of my speaking. There are some talks. There's some good, blog posts to some of the stuff we talked about today, and they can just engage with me through the website.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alec. A question on that cane, though. I'm very curious if someone had, like your mom, two hips, or even just they're walking with a cane, maybe their legs are bad, right? How would they pick up? I'm just being, myself critical here. How would they pick something up? They would need a hand to post somewhere to get that first, right? Like, or they need to sit down to grab it because
or just lean it. You can, it's not for everyone, but I mean, it's very easy. Just two hands to just engage, and you can pick it up with one hand if you need to hold on to something, and you pick something up. And, so people find, you find a way to sort of figure that out. Balance yourself for a second, just to literally engage it, and you just bring it straight up and grab it with the other hand, and then put it back in cane mode. So it's really for folks that are recovering from surgery or injury or aged, may have some challenges. Oftentimes they won't go to a supermarket because they don't want to ask somebody every aisle to take something off a shelf for them that they can't reach down below or above. And in the home, you constantly have need to grab something out of a cabinet or off the floor, or something you can't reach. And so there's a lot of opportunity to for somebody to get that convenience and freedom back. And so a lot of people are acquiring because it's the best grasper in the market, to just use it as a grasper. They're like, I don't need a cane, but I use it in the kitchen all the time to grab stuff in the upper shelves that I can't reach. So.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it as soon as we get off this, because I think that's super cool. What do you call it again on Amazon?
Yeah, it's Reach Your Grasper Cane. Reach Your Grasper Cane.
Reach Your Grasper Cane. Okay.
Grasper Cane. It's .com or on Amazon. You can find it there.
Thank you, Alec. Any other last words or thoughts?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things, there's a lot of hesitation, and in anything we're doing, especially if you're starting a business, and you want to make things perfect, or we're just not ready to tell people about it, or we're not ready to show it to them. And stop hesitating. It's go time. You got to get it out in front of whoever that is, and get that feedback, and then iterate. We work in a vacuum where we're going to miss the opportunity. And oftentimes we could be sitting there with a great idea to be a first mover. And how many times have someone sat there and seen a new product come out and like, God, I thought of that. I had that idea. Just you got to go, and don't hesitate and wait. If you start noodling on it, you can tell others. They're going to want to jump in and help, and you can get going with something and get it pretty far before you're investing. You're going to invest some time, but you're not necessarily have to invest a lot of money to get something going and get it out there and validate you're onto something. So it's go time.
Alec, would you believe me if I told you I invented the McGriddle from McDonald's before the McGriddle was invented?
Yeah, I mean,
when I was a kid, I used to stick pancakes and French toast on top of eggs, and I would eat it like that, and everybody would look at me like, "What? Maybe either he's weird or he's onto something." And all of a sudden, 10 years later, it came out.
Exactly. See, so all you had to do is figure a way to bring that to market. Put it, hundreds of thousands of franchise stores out there and sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
No big deal.
That was a tough challenge right there at that point. Well, Thank you, Alec. I appreciate it. It was awesome having you as a guest. And I just want to close out, folks. So this is Dr. Anthony Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast. And we had our awesome guest, Alec Stern, here today. Unbelievable guest. Thank you so much, Alec. I appreciate that. Definitely give Alec a follow. He's on all forms of social media, right? You're all over the place, Twitter and Facebook, all that stuff. Follow and subscribe to the podcast. Also, I'd like to say, don't forget to read my books here. So I got The Necessity of Finance, the beginning book for finance students. Read it in this order. Second book, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance. And then my last book, The Survival of the Richest, is about 500 plus pages, which really expanded on a lot of the ideas. Definitely check that out. And don't forget drfinance.info on the website, Alex's website as well. Alec, can you say that website one more time?
Sure. AlecSpeaks.com.
AlecSpeaks.com. Definitely check that out and follow these videos. This podcast will be posted on YouTube and all over any kind of podcast directory, especially Amazon, Apple, all that stuff. So thanks again, everyone. Appreciate it. Alec, if you can just stick around for just a moment after the podcast. And then I'd like to close out and say thanks. And I'll see you all on the next episode coming very shortly. Take care, everybody.
Take care.